Welcome to Topsail Insider, where you can hear all about the businesses and events in the beautiful coastal towns in the greater Topsail area of North Carolina. Coming up, it's time to get inspired with today's guest, Karen Redmond. She's an osteopathic therapist, nutritionist, and competitive athlete who spent decades helping clients recover, perform better, and take control of their well-being for life. Plus, we're diving into paddleboarding, home design, and more. Today on Topsail Insider. It's time to indulge and experience the finest coastal hospitality on Topsail Island with saltwater resort and suites in Surf City, North Carolina. Designed to exceed your expectations, guests can enjoy elegant suites featuring premium, luxurious bedding, fully equipped kitchens with dishwashers, 75-inch flat screens, ensuite washers and dryers, and gorgeous ocean views. With the grand opening of their newest location, you can now relax in their saltwater pool and modern clubhouse, perfect for unwinding, socializing, and private events. Book your next beach getaway today at saltwatertopsail.com or call 910-886-4818. Saltwater Resort and Suites, redefining luxury on Topsail Island. Hello, Insiders. My name is Christa, and I am your co-host today because I'm being joined at the mic by Eden Mills. Eden is an artist out of Burgaw, and she also works with Pender County Tourism, and she co-hosts another podcast called Pender County Connect. You should definitely check that out. You can learn more about Eden and all of our new hosts at topsailinsider.com. Go to the Topsail Insider podcast show and click on About, and everybody's pictures and bios are listed there. Welcome, Eden. Thank you so much for joining Topsail Insider. I'm super happy to have you as a host.
Thank you, Christa. Excited to be a new host on this podcast. Our guest today is Karen Redmond. She is an osteopathic therapist, a nutritionist, and the owner of Coastal Health and Fitness. She's also a home designer, is a competitive SUP enthusiast, and we have a lot to cover with everything that she does today. So welcome, Karen, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Before we dive in, I want you to just give us a quick overview of your business, Coastal Health and Fitness, and then maybe explain a little bit about what an osteopathic therapist does and how your approach might be different from that of a physical therapist.
Thank you. So I do get that often, a lot of questions. What is it exactly that you do? So I practice osteopathic therapy, corrective exercise, and holistic health and nutrition consulting. So with osteopathic therapy, I work with people who have any type of injury, from a concussion to a knee issue, back issues. People that come to me typically are anywhere from a regular person with an injury to an elite athlete. So I'll work with them on the specific injury component and then put together a program that periodizes corrective exercises, therapeutic exercises, and looks at integrating functional movement analysis, what they do in their home and life and sport, and then take a look at the nutritional components and lifestyle factors that influence not only the rehab, but their goals to get back to their activities or improve their sports performance and daily life.
So you have an extensive education. We'd love to hear more about the degrees that you hold and what led you to choose osteopathic therapy.
So my undergraduate was from Michigan State University, and I had a generalized bachelor's degree in English. After that, I decided that I wanted to get into health and fitness and looked into personal training. So I received the personal training certification for the Cooper Institute of Aerobics Research in Dallas. And after that, I moved to the Northern Virginia area outside DC, and I worked as a personal trainer there and went to graduate school at Marymount University. I received my master's degree of science from Marymount University in 1997. Mm-hmm. After that, I got married, and my husband and I relocated back to the Chicago area, which is where I grew up. and worked at a personal training studio and started studying with Paul Chek. Paul Chek founded the CHEK program, which is an acronym for Corrective High Performance Exercise Kinesiologist. So through the CHEK program, there are 4 different levels and then a master practitioner. I went through all 4 levels, became a master practitioner, and started teaching not just around the US, but also internationally. And in the CHEK program, I had the opportunity to work with some of the top physical therapists, Diane Lee, Andre Vleeming, Don Tigney, the top teaching physical therapists in the world. And I learned some of their therapeutic techniques as well as corrective exercise.
How long did it take you to go through that program?
So the CHEK program I started in 1998, and I finished my thesis, and my son was born in 2003. So it took me about 5 years for that program.
Mm-hmm. You owned a clinic there in Chicago. Was that during that whole time, or was it after you received that training?
I graduated in 1997 and moved to the Chicago area, and I worked at a general personal training studio. I was about halfway through the CHEK program, and in 1999, I opened up my own clinic. So I was still finishing my CHEK training and certification, and I opened up my own clinic, and I had 8 other practitioners working with me, a massage therapist and a chiropractor. So that started in 1999, and then I continued my education to complete the Master CHEK Practitioner program.
You mentioned a concierge type of service that you were providing.
First, I started in a generalized health club setting. Then I was working at a personal training studio. After being in that about 18 months, I realized that working in a very loud gym with music didn't offer the type of privacy that my clients wanted. What they needed is an assessment room for treatment and evaluation. And if I'm instructing someone, whether they're in acute pain with a serious injury or it's a high-level athlete, having a type of atmosphere where you have to wait for equipment and there's loud music really just wasn't conducive to the type of service I was providing. So at that point, there was one other person, and we decided to open up our own place. The concierge part is when someone would come to me, and whether, again, they were an athlete, a general person with fitness and health goals, weight loss, an elite athlete, or someone in acute pain, I would do whatever therapeutic modalities were necessary, the treatments. I would work with them on the exercises, stretches, LDOAs, nutrition consulting. And inevitably, there's a whole lot of information because it's not just come in and do 3 things. I'm giving them things that are making a change to their whole lifestyle, whether it's how they sit at their desk and computer, what they're eating, how to shop. So that it's just a lot of information at one time. So with that, they don't have to wait to the next appointment if they have a question. So I send them away. I give them their program. We've gone over it. They go home to work on it for a week, let's say, to the next appointment. And they're in the middle of a stretch or an exercise and they forget. They took notes. I wrote notes, but they aren't sure they're doing it correctly. And let's say they're in acute pain. They're a little bit scared because they want to make sure they're doing it correctly and not hurting themselves more.
Further, yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to wait the next week. Like in a typical traditional chiropractic or physical therapy setting, you may not be seeing, well, the chiropractor, you probably see the same person, but you may not be seeing the same person again. And you have to wait till your next appointment. If that person has a question, especially in the initial getting to understand the program and what they should be doing, they can email, call, text me.
Anytime.
Well, I turn off my ringer at 9 p.m. Yeah. But yes, exactly, within reason, because that is what the difference is. It's about having a continuity of care where they're not going to have to wait to the next appointment to get their question answered. A lot of times people might have anxiety, and my rate was more than a regular personal trainer. So what do you get for that? It's like a concierge practice. They're at Whole Foods and they're like, oh, Karen, you told me about this organic turkey bacon. And they snap me a picture. Or is this what I'm supposed to be eating? And they'll snap a picture of their meal. And in 30 seconds, I can respond back, which is really great because texting didn't really come into fashion or really be available, even with the emailing, till much later after 1999. And when my son was born in 2003 and I continued to work full time, I only took 6 weeks off. And I needed a way to retain those clients and help them and yet still be a mom. And it's quite challenging. But when we were able to text, I was able to respond and not have it be obtrusive to my family life and give them a quick answer.
Were there often times where you're like, you can't have that? Put that back on the shelf. Let's try again.
Yeah, exactly. That did happen sometimes. But people get excited in the beginning. And when I am giving them a major lifestyle overhaul on what they need to do, because this is about the long-term change. It's not a short-term fix. It's not go to PT for 6 weeks, because guess what? When you get out of PT, they will even tell you what happens next. PT is this linear model, which is the traditional way of doing therapy. But just because the pain is gone doesn't mean they're better enough to return safely to their activities or their sport without getting re-injured, because the incidence of reoccurrence and re-injury is actually pretty high.
Really?
Yeah, it is, but it's not.
Like it's been weakened. Like whatever was injured is now a weakened area of the body that you would have to continuously, like maybe forever, be careful with.
Well, it could be, but the physical therapist, by nature of the way their model is set, and because of insurance, they're limited in what they can do, right? And so you get the prescription, you go for 6 or 8 weeks, you may be able to extend it, but that's pretty much it. And so most therapists are also not trained in the next stage of exercises. So, okay, you've got your therapeutic floor-based exercises or some upright exercises. What's next? Where does the transitional part come in? And how do you return an athlete to be able to do explosive plyometric exercises? Like I had a lot of D1 athletes, like soccer players and super high-level ice skaters.
Yeah, this was in Chicago?
Yeah, and I still travel back and forth and see those clients as well as working remotely. So that's where that came from, as far as being able to answer the questions that they have in the moment. And when you do that, you will get compliance because they know that you're there to support them and they're in it and they'll see the progress. And it also makes the recovery or the goals achieved happen much faster.
Yeah.
Because there's no lag of a week to a week. It's okay, great. Here's how you progress it.
So, Karen, your dad was a big part of your career choice. Is that right?
Yes. Now that I think about it, I'm 56 years old. And at the time, I probably wasn't thinking he was an influence. But when I look at where I am right now and what I've done with health and fitness and advanced education, several things come to mind with my dad, who he passed away this past July. So I've had a lot of time to think about his influence in my life. And you just reflect in times like that.
Sorry about that.
Well, thank you. But growing up, my dad was very passionate about education. So he had 2 master's degrees and was close to completing a PhD.
Oh, wow.
And he was a man of science. So he had over 100 patents. And back then, UIC wasn't on its main campus. It was actually at Navy Pier. And the gym was literally at the end point of Navy Pier looking out onto the lake. And so he was there. He was very successful. He lettered. And then he got a full ride scholarship to Michigan State University for gymnastics. And during that time, the men's gymnastics team won the NCAA championship. He took second in all around and first place on pommel horse.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So he had a very bright mind, very smart man, and an excellent athlete. So, of course, I was a gymnast. I started as a gymnast, and then I was a diver, and then I did track, and then I moved on to tennis. I did a lot of sports, and he was very passionate about encouraging my sister and I to get into sports.
The discipline that it takes to get to that level that he was at, and the mind as well. It sounds like he was just really not just athletic and brilliant, but he had to have a certain level of discipline to to have those achievements. I believe that you do too. I just from the pre-interview and the little bit I do know about you so far, it sounds like you're extremely disciplined. Did you get that from him, or how was your mom? Was she the same way?
Not at all. So yes, and it's interesting that you said that, because when people read the obituary that I wrote for my father, and there wasn't really a formal memorial service, it was just private with family actually a week ago in Chicago. So when I wrote the obituary and then my friends that know me read it, they said exactly what you said. You are like your dad. So yes, I'm driven, type A, passionate about my business and helping my clients, furthering research to get the best information I can to my clients. My own personal motivation, I was a competitive runner after college, and now I am a competitive stand-up paddleboarder for the last 2 years. And I've been traveling around the Southeast with my husband and competing in major races. And at 56, even winning some of the races overall.
That's incredible. Tell us what brought you to the Topsail area. How did you end up here?
So in 2020, during the pandemic, it affected our business. We were in living in Northbrook, Illinois, and my business was in Northbrook, Illinois, which is part of Cook County. And we were really very much affected more than other parts of the country, not by the people getting sick, but as far as what we were allowed to do and not do. And I just said, you know what? I want to move somewhere that we can live year round and have a good quality of life. My husband's from Charlotte. He's one of 7 children, and we have a lot of sisters and brother-in-laws in the area. And I really thought the Wilmington area would be great. So we started looking at property in August of 2020 and came down in September of 2020 and bought a lot.
You knew about Topsail because he was from Charlotte and already knew about the area?
Interestingly enough, we had both been to Topsail a couple of times. Our brother-in-law's family built a home on Topsail, I think in the late 70s or early 80s. And so I had only been once. I didn't even really remember Topsail, but I just thought Wilmington area. So we started researching what waterfront lots would be available. And someone said, you should look at Hampstead. And then we were both like, we've been to Topsail, and he had been there more than I had been. And interestingly enough, he had played in a couple golf tournaments at the Belvedere Plantation, which is the golf course right across from our house. So it's just such a small world. So we were lucky to find a nice size lot directly on the Intercoastal. We put a bid down in November, closed on it of 2020, and made a 2-year exit plan out of the Chicago area to move our businesses down here and find a builder, build a home.
So I have a question. How do you keep your discipline and motivation? We talked about that earlier. On days that you don't feel like getting up or you don't have that energy to keep on going?
That's a really good question. But I have to say, I don't ever feel like that. I am just wired. I get up at sunrise. And if the sun is coming up later, like now, I like to start exercising at sunrise. It's also hard to exercise in the dark, and actually not the best, because your circadian rhythms and your body's functions, your hormones, your energy, all work around sunrise and sunset. So it's easier to get up and exercise at sunrise. And I also like to stay on the same schedule. So I'm usually up between 5 and 5:30. So I exercise before clients always. So I get my training workout in, whether it's paddleboarding, running, lifting weights, stretching. And then I start seeing clients.
Do your clients help motivate you as well? Having to guide them with their athleticism or whatever they're going through, does that help you mentally?
It's definitely a checks and balances system, but more the other way. My clients are motivated to see me, and I motivate them because I am trying to set the example. So Paul Chek a long time ago had a saying, wear it before you share it. So if you're giving nutritional advice and you're showing ab exercises and you yourself are not walking the walk and talking the talk, and you do not have a clean diet, and you are not exercising, and you are not doing cardio, and you aren't very fit, then what kind of an example and why should someone want to come to you when you're not doing it? So I do it really more honestly for myself. I love it. I do love to exercise.
I can tell.
I'm passionate about it.
Moving here, how difficult has it been for you to bring your practice here and get the new clients here?
So it actually has been more challenging than I thought it was going to be. What I do is very unique. In the Chicago area, even in the Midwest, there was nobody that had the credentials or did the type of work that I did. So when I moved down here, I knew my plan would be to continue to work virtually. So I do work virtually with probably 80% of my clients. So I have it set up either with FaceTime or with Zoom. And we do everything from nutritional and lifestyle coaching, which that's easy to do remotely. But I developed therapeutic techniques to work virtually with people, even rehabbing one of my clients post-knee replacement virtually. And then I travel back to Chicago several times a year and I sublet space. And so then I see the Chicago area clients in person.
If people are looking for an osteopathic therapist, how do they get in touch with you? How do they see the services that you offer?
Usually it's been mostly word of mouth, or actually more recently on Instagram, because some of the people that follow me on Instagram and some of the things I post, one guy stopped me in Lowe's a couple of weeks ago and he said, "Hey, Karen Redmond." And I thinking, okay, how many people here know my name, right? In the middle of Lowe's. And he says, "You stand up paddleboard." So
that's cool.
I know, you never know, right? But I have a phone conversation with all clients first, usually 15 to 20 minutes. We talk about what their goals are, what I can do to offer them, whether it's the nutritional, well, there's always a nutritional aspect, but what I can do therapeutically, how it differs from physical therapy or chiropractic, what they can expect, what I expect of them as far as it's not just a model of you come, I treat you, you leave. It is you have things to do on your own, because I teach people how to get themselves out of their pain. I teach them how to be able to have a healthy lifestyle. So it's getting them on board and getting them passionate about it so that they will get the results that they want. So it's on them. It's not just me or someone doing it for them. It's about them taking ownership and responsibility in wanting to get better or achieve a healthier lifestyle, better at their sport, whatever their goals may be.
Karen, can you tell us about the space that you treat your clients at?
Thanks to my husband, we are finishing building out. So the ground level of the house is actually almost 1,000 square feet, which is a pretty large space. So
that's awesome.
It's on the ground level on the other side of the garage. So you can enter under the stairs or along the back patio. And it has a view of the intercoastal. So it has a treatment area. So I have my treatment table, which is like a physical therapy electronic treatment table. And then I brought my gym equipment from Chicago area down. So I have that. So there's a gym space with the dumbbells, an elliptical, a spin bike, barbells, wobble boards, all the fun exercise and fitness toys, a cable stack pulley machine. And then I have the treatment areas. There's a beautiful view. So
yeah, no kidding. Huh?
So you get the view while you work hard or are being treated. So that's really nice. And it is a one-stop shop. So I might be treating you on the table and then I'll be like, okay, let's come over and stretch. Get off the table, we go to the rubber mat on the floor and we stretch. Or we're in the gym and we're working on something related to a sport or they're doing an exercise and I see that their shoulders are not moving properly. And I see something and instead of just finishing the exercise, we go, okay, back on the table. I'm going to release that. They get up and all of a sudden it's different. So it's back and forth, but in a very fluid way where I'm not really limited in what I can treat with people. So it's whatever the person has that day, we will treat it the way it needs to get treated. It might just be a whole exercise session, or we can exercise outside. I had a group of ladies that I've worked with several times. There are 5 of them. And our warm-up is down and back on the dock. So it's 600 feet long, 0.12 of a mile down and back, so almost a quarter of a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. We walk outside, we do our warm up, and then there's a back patio off the gym, a really large patio. And we did our whole exercise session outside looking at the water.
That sounds amazing.
Does osteopathic therapy also include nerves as well, like healing any type of nerve damage?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. When I'm speaking about osteopathic therapy, so in the US right now, you have physical therapy and you have chiropractic. Those are, and you massage, different modalities of massage therapy. Those are the basic therapeutic techniques. So I'm trained in traditional osteopathy out of Europe through Dr. Voyer's soma therapy or osteopathy program, which is the original or now European based, which is more like physical therapy, except there are way more treatment techniques. So I can treat any type of nerve issue. So whether there's nerve damage from a disc or an entrapment, any type of myofascial muscle tear, I treat concussions. I treat people with chronic illnesses, pretty much anything to do with the human body that would not need either surgery or drug intervention.
Right.
I can treat anything else.
So, Karen, outside of your work, you're still highly focused on nutrition and health. Can you give us some of your insight about Karen's favorites and some of your socials and how people can find you online?
Sure. So I started karensfavorites.com and my Instagram accounts, the first one, over 10 years ago because my clients wanted support for nutrition. So I'd say to them, okay, you need to eat clean. Let's go on an anti-inflammatory diet because you have a chronic illness or you're in acute pain. What is an anti-inflammatory diet? Okay, that's no grains, no sugar, no dairy, no alcohol. What do I eat? Meat and vegetables and fruit. Okay. And so if I wanted to get compliance and I wanted them to have success, I needed to give them support. So for years, my clients have been going to these nutritionists and they'd be like these robots and say, take these supplements, eat this, don't eat that. You know what? People don't know how to cook. People don't know how to prepare foods. People don't know how to shop. People don't know what spices to have. People's kitchens are not organized to cook. So you give them a recipe and it's stress. And if it's stress, they're not going to do it.
No.
And you know
right.
what else? I was raising 2 young kids with my husband and my whole family ate the same thing. So I figured out a way to help them by doing menu planning. So doing menu planning starting on Sunday, going grocery shopping, planning for the week with meals that everyone in the family will eat that are healthy and setting them up for success. You have to set them up. That's why people go off the wagon on their diets. That's why people fluctuate because no one sits down and helps them with the formula. And so Karen's Favorites started and I started sharing recipes with my clients and they're like, oh, the 1-pan meal, Hoppin' John, which is basically ground beef and vegetables and you can serve it over rice or anything else healthy. And it's super easy to make. You don't need a lot of ingredients and it's a 1-pan meal. So 1 pan in the meal, everyone loves it. So I started sending them out the recipes. Like, you have to put it somewhere. So I started putting all my recipes on karensfavorites.com. So they're all gluten-free. Some of them have dairy. They are all healthy. And not only that, they're easy to prepare and they're delicious because not only do I share my recipes, I'm really big into the health and the flavor profile and how it tastes. So the recipes are really delicious tasting. They are not, oh, this is a awful healthy meal. The kids eat it. So I started putting them on Karen's Favorites and then they wanted me to talk more about, okay, what products do I use? If you're going to prep this meal and you don't have a good knife, that makes it challenging. Okay, here are the good knives. Okay, this is the best cutting board. These are the type of spices. So I basically tried to simplify and provide information on products and recipes through Karen's Favorites and then started sharing that more. Then the Instagram account evolved after that.
That's nice. Is that like an Amazon list?
Some of the things are on Amazon, but my main platform for products, it's called To Know It. And so you can follow me at Karen's Favorites on To Know It. And I have two sections. I have a bunch of sections. Some of it is home design and decor, but then everything from what are the cleanest cleaning products, not just what cleans well, what are non-toxic cleaning products. So I have been promoting non-toxic cleaning and beauty products for 25 years before it was all out there, when there were only a few options, limiting plastics, supporting hormone health for not just adults, but for kids and families. So unlike To Know It, I have different sections where I post the products. And not only are they clean products or a really good knife, these are things, and that's part of my research from graduate school. I've thoroughly researched before I even buy and try a product, researched it through different modalities and a different rigor that a typical person might research. It'll take me probably an hour or two to research one thing. Then I try it. And it has to meet, my clients call it Karen approved. This is Karen approved, literally, and it's not an exaggeration. It's not a joke. It's for real. Is it Karen approved? Meaning, would it meet the health background that I want it to? And is it a good product? Mm-hmm. Is it really a very good product, whether it's a knife or a spice or a vacuum, because the vacuum doesn't push into the exhaust everything else because of the HEPA filter. So those are things that my clients have come to value. And so I've put that all together in a platform that people can just click through.
Click a link and go straight to that
product and purchase it. Straight to the product. And the other thing that I've done, which takes a little more time, is there might be several places you can buy a product. And I put the best price. So I research out where you're going to get the best deal on the global knife.
Nice.
Where you're going to get the best deal on the vacuum. There's a vacuum for your mattress and your upholstery. And you can't believe what comes up. And it's got a UVC light.
That's awesome. I love that. And you've been doing it since before it was a thing, because before we have all of the affiliate links that we have today, it's really promoted heavily with influencers and stuff online, but you were doing it a long time ago.
I was doing it a long time ago, but it was in this disjointed links. And so now it's much easier with the Like to Know It platform, because you can just go to cleaning and you see the picture of the product, and I can put a little note in there about why I recommend it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah.
Also, on your socials and on the website, you're posting a lot of your adventures on the paddleboard, which I find completely inspiring. I'm assuming you picked that up once you moved here, or were you already doing that in Chicago?
A little bit of both. So I was a competitive runner for many years, doing half marathons and below. And I actually organized a group of women to do the Ragnar Relay, which was a 200-mile race from Madison, Wisconsin to Chicago. And we did it as a women's ultra team. So normally Ragnar has 12 people. This was 6 people for 200 miles. And so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we'd each have anywhere between 3 and 8 miles. And we won the women's open category for that race. So
what age did you start doing that?
I started running. I got more into running literally right after college. I was running, but the women's ultra, this was in the 2012 Ragnar. So I was a competitive runner. And when we bought our lot and knew we were going to live on the water, I thought, I really want a stand-up paddleboard, but I'd only done rec boards. So that's when I met Jared at Wrightsville Sup. We bought the lot in 2020. And in 2021, I started a few paddleboard lessons with Jared on a rec board, and then got a rec board and was paddling in Lake Michigan in Chicago, which was actually, it's more like an ocean. I don't know if you're familiar with Lake Michigan, but
it's surprisingly like an ocean.
It's huge. I mean, there's no tide, but the wind and the waves, and it can get super rough. And of course, there's a very small paddling season. And then when we moved here in 2022, and I kept working with my coach, Jared, he's the one that's helped me so much. That 10'6", 31-inch rec board does not cut it on the intercoastal. I was so slow. And then working against the tide. So now you not only have current and boats, you have the resistance going against the tide, which most people don't realize. If they're in a lake, you don't have the resistance of the tide. The tide could be pushing you back 2 miles an hour.
Right.
So you're literally, when you're going with the tide, it's yeehaw, it's fun.
I've seen people not expecting to meet that and really fighting hard against it and ultimately failing sometimes. I've seen
and it's
people
dangerous.
have to get picked up. Yeah.
You have to be, I'm crazy with all my gear. So Jared taught me all about respecting and understanding full moon, new moon, looking at the tide swing with my apps, looking at the wind, looking at the current, the inlets. And I continued to take more lessons from him. And then I had to graduate to what I call the big girl board. So I went from the 10'6", 31-inch wide rec board to a 14 feet long carbon fiber, 23-inch, very narrow board, race board, a little over 2 years ago. And then I decided I want to start racing. So I started competing and racing.
Where are some of the locations that you've competed?
So locally, I've competed in Surf City and at Carolina Cup, which is in Wrightsville Beach. I do a lot of races on Lake Wylie. So that is near Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been down to Hilton Head. I've been to Florida, been to Savannah area. So pretty much
You just travel all over.
it's wherever my husband's really, he's just so supportive. I love it. We put the board on the car and we just drive. It works really well. And I just have now, I can just drop right in. After the first year of paddling, and I continued to work with my coach and got really serious on my technique. In 2 years, I took over 14 minutes off my 5K time. And then I moved up to the 10K distance this year after only racing 2 years and won a race Lake Hartwell, which is in Clemson. I won a 6-mile race there overall for women. That was my
I saw that picture online, actually. That was awesome.
It was really, and it was crazy because it started at 10 a.m. And I'm like, who starts a race at 10 a.m. in the summer? And it was like 90 degrees and you're sweating and you're hot. But yeah, it was a great race.
What do you do now during this cold weather? You're not still getting out there, are you?
Yeah, I'm trying to get out as much as possible. So I look at the wind as the big thing. I typically don't go out if it's colder than 45 degrees, but if it's 45 degrees and no wind, I'll get out. I've got neoprene booties. So my feet sit in the water on the board and the water now I think is 56 degrees.
You're not wearing a wetsuit?
No, I don't plan on falling in. So
You're brave.
Last week I was out in my bikini and my booties on my paddleboard.
That's impressive.
I said, don't put the bikini away yet, even though it's December. The next couple weeks when it's really cold. So now I'm back to more running and more strength training in the off season to build strength and keep my max VO2 endurance up. So the running really helps with that a lot.
So you also have a passion for home design and decor and provide inspiration and shopping online. So can you tell us a little bit about your home decor and home design and your Instagram that you started?
Sure. In 2020, we bought our lot, and I had already been progressing with Karen's Favorites, my business side on Instagram. And I thought, hey, we had already built a custom home in Northbrook, a beautiful custom home where I designed the entire interior of the home, all the hard finishes, all the soft finishes, everything. It was a French country reproduction house. And when we went to sell it 17 years later after we built it, it was not dated at all. So the kitchen, the bathrooms, everything that I'd selected that people thought I was crazy. Why are you putting in marble countertops? Because marble's French and marble's beautiful and I don't like granite.
So you were designing ahead of your time.
I was. And back then there was no Pinterest. I had folders when I sat down with the architect and I had torn out of Traditional Home and Architectural Digest. So when we sold the house and people and realtors and everyone came through and is looking at this saying, your house is beautiful. It's 17 years old. We don't need to renovate anything. It's not dated. And when that happened, I knew I would be able to do the same thing building our home now as far as picking out the interior soft and hard finishes. And I thought, I should do a house account. Why not do a house account and talk about not just the interior finishes, but what it takes to build a house that is hurricane proof. Everything from the windows to the piling foundation, it's built to withstand hurricane category 4.
Yeah.
What does that look like? The permit process, the LVLs, the structural engineer, the dock that had to be approved by CAMA that's over 600 feet long. So I put together an Instagram account and started to work on collaborating. Before we had even moved, what if you could have the opportunity to work with someone that is a regular person, not a chef, creating recipes and creating a functional kitchen and showcasing how to use these appliances. A week after I emailed the president of Sub-Zero Wolf, I got a call on my caller ID. It says Sub-Zero Wolf is calling me. And I was like, what? And so I did work with the people in the Chicago showroom and the merchandise. So I had the opportunity to build a second functional kitchen with not just fabulous products, but everything from the layout of why I say you need a spice drawer to I collaborated with the Larchwood Butcher Block top out of Canada. It is a renewable wood, and it is the most fabulous wood. They make little small butcher blocks or cutting boards you can purchase as well. And it's beautiful, and it doesn't show knife marks. And so every aspect of the kitchen and then the rest of the house, I thought I should put this together and showcase and make the ideas and design inspiration available to other people.
What did that partnership look like? Did they give you free range? And
Oh, you mean Sub-Zero?
yes.
No, we got a discount.
Okay.
We
Hey,
did
we'll
get a
take
discount. It wasn't free, but we'll take a discount.
You were going to say the next week they showed up. One just showed up at our door, delivered. I got to start making some phone calls.
Not quite like that, but it was also challenging building at that time because at the time we ordered our appliances, everything during COVID, it was taking a year to get a refrigerator.
Yeah.
But I'm such this meticulous planner that I had factored in, I call it fudge time, right? So I'm like, okay, if I need it here, I'm going to try to get it sooner. So I had already acquired almost all the light fixtures, most of the tile, some of it before we even broke ground.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, wow.
Which also enabled me to, as I found things, I had researched, I'm big on finding the best price on nice items. So whether it's the global knives that I love or the visual comfort light fixture, it was able to give me time to source finding really good discounts, even on some of the more luxury products. So those are some of the things that I like to be able to share with people. If I put together a link is, you could get this for $100 or every other website is $298.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's where you can find it if you like it and that's all from my research in grad school. So when I had to do research for all the papers and things that I was writing in grad school, that was still back in the microfiche and go to the stacks and copy articles. We were still on a 18.8 dial-up modem, which you got bumped off before you could even pull up a piece of research. So it was just, and in Virginia where we were in, they had Medline, which was you could coordinate with all, Johns Hopkins, Georgetown, GW, American University, Marymount University. We had all these amazing Catholic University, George Mason, all these universities that would collaborate all their data and I would just order it. And that's how I started to learn. And then once the internet came, how to research things. So whether it's the best oven and why, or the review on the product or the knife or anything that I'm doing, or the best price, figuring out how I can get the best price on something like our counter stools I saw at Pottery Barn. But I researched and found they were manufactured by Hooker Furniture in North Carolina and found them for 60% less than the Pottery Barn price for the same piece.
So a lot of what you do is research as well.
Yes.
All right. If I need to get some new furniture, I'm going to just call you and could you please help me find this cheaper?
I'm happy to do it.
So Karen, can you tell us about your future plans with Coastal Health and Fitness, your paddleboarding, and your home design, Instagram, social media, and what you plan on doing in the future with all of those?
So for Coastal Health and Fitness, I would like to continue to grow my client base here locally, working with anyone from an individual post-surgery, or I've had the opportunity to prevent many people from having surgery, helping them with nutrition, helping athletes, anyone in the area. As far as stand-up paddleboarding, I, of course, already have my list of races for the year. There are some very fit, competitive women out there paddleboarding, but I've done so well with my times and my training with my coach that I plan on going to Detroit to compete in the National Stand-Up Paddleboarding race. So that will be in July this year. And then several other races across the Southeast. Mostly, I think I'll be sticking to the 10K distance, maybe slightly longer. Who knows, maybe, if I can get a sponsor, go over to Dubai for the World Championship, which would be in November. That's a little bit of a reach. Not that I could definitely be there and compete, but getting over to Dubai with a paddleboard, the logistics take a little bit.
If anyone can figure it out, Karen, it's you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to follow along on your socials and see your winning photos. That's what I want to see.
Thank you.
What about the home design? Do you have any future plans with that? Do you ever consider doing a brick and mortar for that?
It's interesting. I developed my own. Our home that we did in Northbrook was custom French country. The home here is, I call it coastal luxe. It's not a beach house. It's not just a coastal home. It's a hybrid of some modern finishes with vintage, timeless underpinnings. I created that in my head as I was looking to build. There was nobody that was really building a house or designing it of what I had envisioned. So that might be something that I would think about doing that. One of the things that my husband and I have been doing together is I really like faux bamboo, Regency, mid-century, modern, Henry Lincoln Thomasville furniture. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't look like your typical mid-century modern furniture, and it has a coastal vibe to it. And there's all these pieces floating around, a lot of them all over the Carolinas and in Georgia. So over the last 2 years, my husband has gone around and picked up a bunch of pieces, which he is actually very handy. He'll be refinishing it. So we'll be doing some refinishing of vintage pieces to put in our own home. And then we'll be eventually selling some of those pieces with fun. Taking that older looking, it's got like this kind of dingy yellow-green color. Mm-hmm. And what we'll be doing is putting a high lacquer finish paint on it and then restoring the hardware to the original brass finish. So that's some of the things that we'll be doing. We still have landscaping. So a lot of projects I'll be talking about inside the house.
And you document all of this on your Instagram, right?
Yes. So on Soundview Life on Instagram is where I post everything. And then also links to products that I'm using in the house or decor pieces are also on To Know It.
Okay, before we wrap this up, what is one thing you want to leave our listeners with today?
What's that one thing, Karen? What's the one thing?
One thing. One of my taglines early on when I was trying to put things out to people would say to me, what's your goal? My first goal personally is I want to inspire others to be healthy. And I want it to be a long-term, life-changing commitment, not a short-term diet, not a fad. There are no short-term fixes for anything. It's a lifetime commitment and changing. And it's important to prioritize your health.
So our time is up here today. If you don't mind, if you could just give out your contact information again for us, the main places that we can go and find you.
Sure. So the easiest way if you want to contact me directly would be to email me at karenmredmond@mac.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Karen's Favorites, as well as at Soundview Life for the home account. And there are links to each of those. My website is campsitebio.com/Karen's Favorites. And those are all my website information are on my Instagram accounts. I'm also on Facebook at Karen's Favorites and at Soundview Life. You can always message me through Instagram. You can message me through Facebook. I try to make it easy to find me. I do check that and I will respond back.
Okay. And also, listeners, you know that you can go and check out our show notes. That's where you will have all of her links to her website and her socials, and there will be click and go links there for you. So I just want to say thank you to our listeners.
Thank you, Karen.
And also, thank you, Eden, for joining as a host. And again, Karen, thank you for coming here and sharing all the information with us today. We really appreciate it.
And thank you, Christa.
Oh, my pleasure. Always.
Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode of Topsail Insider, please show your support by clicking the follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Please also go to topsailinsider.com and join our mailing list by clicking on the Make Me a Topsail Insider button. While you're there, you can click the Send Me a Voicemail button and let me know exactly what you're thinking. Your message just might be on an episode of Topsail Insider. You can email me at Christa@topsailinsider.com or call or text me at 910-800-0111. Thank you for listening and supporting Topsail Insider and our local businesses and nonprofits. These are our neighbors and our friends, and together we build a mighty and a beautiful community I'm super proud to be a part of. I'll see you around Topsail.